Forget Silicon Valley for a second. What if the best place to launch your startup isn't where you think it is? The game has shifted, the map has changed, and founders who haven't noticed are already behind. We've spent decades worshiping at the altar of San Francisco, acting like zip codes were a substitute for talent. But the pandemic cracked that myth wide open. Remote work, rising costs, and a wave of restless founders fleeing $2,000 a month closets rewrote the entire playbook overnight. Think of a startup ecosystem like a garden. You don't just need seeds. You need soil, water, and the right climate. And some cities have quietly been composting for years while nobody was paying attention. Austin, Miami, New York, and even international hubs like Tallinn and Medellín have been building infrastructure that rivals what used to take decades to establish. The optimism around Silicon Valley's dominance felt bulletproof 10 years ago, with every headline screaming about unicorns minted on Sand Hill Road. But now those same headlines are asking why founders are fleeing to Texas or Dubai. The psychological shift is real. When even Peter Thiel moves to Miami, you start wondering if the signal is louder than the noise. Historically, great ecosystems emerge in roughly 20 to 30-year cycles, following capital, talent, and culture the way water follows gravity. And we're clearly in one of those pivotal reshuffling moments right now. New York went from a punchline in tech circles in the early 2000s to producing Stripe, Oscar Health, and dozens of fintech giants that San Francisco would have claimed as its own a decade prior. Here's the misconception that trips up most early-stage founders. They think the best ecosystem is the biggest one, when really the best ecosystem is the one where your dollar, your network, and your market access align. A pre-seed founder burning through runway in San Francisco is essentially paying a premium tax just to exist near people who might eventually have time for a coffee. Austin gives you access to a growing pool of engineers, zero state income tax, and a culture that's genuinely warm to risk takers, without making you feel like you need a Series A just to afford dinner. Miami has leaned hard into crypto, fintech, and Latin American market access. And the founder community there is evangelically supportive in a way that established cities sometimes aren't. If you're building in deep tech or defense, don't sleep on Boston, which has MIT, Harvard, and a biotech corridor that quietly mints breakthroughs the way Nashville mints country albums. Meanwhile, Chicago remains criminally underrated for B2B software, logistics, and enterprise startups, with lower burn rates and a Midwest work ethic that investors are starting to respect loudly. Internationally, Tallinn in Estonia basically invented the digital nation concept. And if you're building anything with a global compliance angle, their e-residency program and founder-friendly regulation is the kind of cheat code that takes years off your go-to-market timeline. Medellín and Bogotá are producing founders who understand emerging market dynamics in ways that Silicon Valley whiteboards simply cannot replicate. The irony is that the cities marketing themselves the hardest as the next Silicon Valley are rarely the ones actually building the next Silicon Valley. It's the ones quietly improving accelerator density, university pipelines, and angel networks, while everyone else is distracted by press releases. Community wisdom on platforms like Reddit, Twitter, and indie founder Slack groups consistently points to cities like Raleigh-Durham, Salt Lake City, and Seattle as deeply undervalued for specific verticals. The practical lesson here is embarrassingly simple. Match your ecosystem to your stage and your sector, not to your ego or your LinkedIn aesthetic. An early stage founder in a lower cost city with strong mentorship access will almost always outrun a founder burning cash on prestige geography with no real support structure. Size your bets accordingly. Don't relocate your entire life based on a single Forbes list or a tweet from a venture capitalist who hasn't written a check outside California in 15 years. Disciplined founders who study ecosystem fit with the same rigor they apply to product market fit consistently outperform those chasing geography, like it's a growth hack. At the end of the day, the city is just a container. What matters is the discipline you bring to the process, the patience you have with the timeline, and the consistency of your execution regardless of your mailing address. The best ecosystem in the world cannot save a founder who hasn't mastered their own decision-making framework. Wherever you land, be intentional, be rational, and be comfortable with the fact that the right answer for you might look nothing like the right answer for someone else. And that's not a bug, that's the whole point. The founders who obsess over process and positioning, not prestige and proximity, are the ones still standing when the next reshuffling begins. And whether your next move involves building a business, investing in real estate, finding a contractor, or securing the right lender to fund your vision, check out our links in the description below to see how we can help you get started.